All right, people. Compound inequalities part 2. So, we left off with just a simple um, three-part or compound inequality to solve. Let's give you one that's a little bit more, I won't say difficult, but a few more steps to take. So I have negative 3, which is less than 2x plus 5, that is less than 17. So in order to solve, we again want to get the x by itself, right? So the same way you solve for anything, I would subtract 5, not only by one side, but all three sides. So that gives me negative 8, which is less than 2x, which is less than 12, right? So now we divide all three sides by a 2. So this now gives me negative 4 is less than x, which is less than 6. And if we pretty much realize it does make sense, so we can graph it, and if this was 0 and this was negative 4 and this was positive 6, we are open at both of the numbers, negative 4 and 6, and we shade everything in between. If we had to write it in interval notation, right, then we would do where? We started at negative 4 and then we ended at positive 6. And then that would be my answer. So, enough with the simple stuff. Let's give you some eye-openers, shall we? Well, not really eye-openers. Negative 8 is less than equal to 2 times negative 3x plus 5, which is less than 34. So, excuse me. First things first, right? So we need to distribute the 2 to everything on the inside, right, of that parentheses. Excuse me. So that leaves me with negative 8 is less than equal to negative 6x plus 10, which is less than 34. So now I need to subtract the 10 from both sides, and then that gives me what? Now that gives me negative 18. Negative 18 is less than equal to negative 6x, which is less than 24. So what's left to do? Divide everything by negative 6. Well, if I divide everything by negative 6, this now gives me, well, 6 goes into 18 times, or 3 times. So this is now, oh, what happens when we divide by negative? This no longer is less than, this is now greater than equal to x, which is greater than, well, 6, negative 6 can go into 24 a negative 4 times. So, do we leave our answers as so? No, 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 no. Does it make sense that a 3 happens to be, well, it is happen to be greater than negative 4, but we actually always rearrange it as it would appear on the, oopsies, number line. So, as it would appear on the number line, rearrange as on number line, just in case you need to see that. So that would be actually negative 4 would come first on the number line, and then that would be less than x, which would be less than equal to positive 3. So how do you graph it? Again, as it is on the number line, negative 4 is below 0 and positive 3 is above 0, or to the right of 0. So negative 4 would be open, positive 3 would be closed, and we shade everything in between. How do you write it in interval notation? Well, if it's open here, That means it is parentheses -4 and it's closed at +3, so that means you make a bracket. Pretty simple, huh? Yeah, right. I know that's what you're saying. All right, one more example and then we are good to go for class on Wednesday. I am feeling a fraction in my spirit. Do you feel a fraction? I'm feeling one. So, let's do one. I have -1/2, which is less than 3/4x minus 2/3, which is less than equal to 1/2. So, if I'm first looking at this, what is my least common denominator? Well, you can do 2 times 4, which will give you 8, or 3 times 2, which will give you 6, and 6 times 8 is 48. That's a bit much. What is the lowest number that all 3 of them can all 4 of them can multiply to? Well, really 3. So that would be 12. So you multiply everything again. By the LCD. So that'll be 12 times -1/2, which is less than, which is less than 12 times 3/4x plus 12 times -2/3 less than equal to 12 times 1/2. And again, you say, why do I do all of this extra work? Well, I want to do it so that I can get rid of the fraction. Technically, this 12, all of these 12s are over 1. So, let me write it actually in red. So, 2 can go into 12 6 times. So, I'm left with 6 times -1, which will give me a -6, less than 4 can go into 12. How many times? 3 times. So that'll be 3 times 3, which will be 9x. 3 can go into 12 here. How many times? 4 times. So that'll be 4 times -2, which will be a -8. And last but not least, 2 can go into 12 6 times here. So 6 times 1, and that'll give me just 6. So now that looks perfect and I kind of go back and check myself, everything looks good. Now I can say, let's solve for x. I add the 8 to both sides, or all 3 sides, and I am left with +2, which is less than 9x, which is less than equal to, excuse me, ooh my, 14. So what's left to do? Divide by who? Divide by 9. So 9, 9, 9, and then 2 over 9, which is less than x, which is less than equal to 14 over 9. And I've run out of time. So you have a worksheet to do. I suggest you find it on your LMS, and I will talk to you soon.